Thank you very much for joining me on the News Hour tonight. Shirin Ebadi, Nobel laureate, won the Nobel Peace Prize and is an important and prominent Iranian activist. Thank you very much. And you've been an inspiration for women, for voices of democracy and freedom, for those seeking liberation from the oppressive forces. Iran has gone through a lot over the last 5 decades and specifically over the last few months. Do you believe that change is imminent?
Look, this situation cannot continue because everything in Iran is on the verge of destruction. The economy, the environment, human rights are being violated. The people are totally dissatisfied. There is a high level of disenchantment among the population. All I can say is that soon, but I cannot give you a date.
The Iran state media has reported that around 3,100 people have been killed in protests recently. Do you believe that number, or is it much more? How do you see the real situation on the ground?
The Iranian state media is known for its propaganda, it's known for its lies and mendacious reports. Nobody trusts what the Iranian state media says. Based on verified reports that we have received, over 20,000 protesters have been killed in the recent riots. Now, I'm going to compare this with the situation during the 12-day war when Israel and the United States attacked Iran. During those 12 days, about 1,500 were killed, as announced by the government, and that included members of the Revolutionary Guards, nuclear scientists, and some civilians. And bear in mind that all that happened in 12 days. So you can imagine that first we had the 12-day war, now we've had this riot, and more people, now about 20,000 been killed. This just shows that the regime has declared an official war against its own people.
The Iranian authorities have essentially dubbed the protests as a security threat. Given the kind of brutality that we've witnessed in crushing these protests, do you believe that people of Iran will continue their protests, and will they last the distance to bring about meaningful change?
Look, the Islamic Republic of Iran has proven in the past decades that it is not possible for it to be reformed. And the reason it cannot be reformed is because of our constitution. Believe me, we have tried various means of reforming the regime, and it just doesn't work because the constitution doesn't allow it to be reformed. For many years, the Iranian people have been calling for this regime to end, but it hasn't, and every time the regime carries out brutal crackdown against the protesters, yet they return and they protest again. And their protests have been peaceful, with just their fists in the air and using no weapons. Yet the regime has responded to these protests by using military weapons against the protesters. And even now, despite the crackdown, the situation is not any calmer. And at the moment, we have a kind of martial law in Iran, and there are tanks on the street. This doesn't show that the protests have ended and now calm has been restored.
In that case, Ms. Ebadi, where the Iranian regime is unwilling to change its ways and where the scope for them bringing about any reform is next to none. Where do you think then you stand on the issue of foreign intervention to bring about this change? The US President Donald Trump has not ruled that out.
Military intervention will only lead to killing of more civilians in the country. Myself and many Iranian people who are against the regime, we wrote a letter to Donald Trump, and we asked him, we told him that the only people we want killed are the 88-year-old Supreme Leader Khamenei and the leaders of the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guards. So the people of Iran have urged the United States to carry out targeted killings of the Supreme Leader and the Revolutionary Guard commanders, just as they targeted and killed Ismail Haniyeh, and who was just in one room. So they managed to just target him, kill him, assassinate him, and one of his guards. And the people of Iran weren't in any way injured or killed in the process. So again, we have urged the United States President to just target the Supreme Leader and commanders of the Islamic Revolution Guard Corps and not the people of Iran with military intervention.
In the past, you've spoken about how Iran's nuclear program was a source of pride for the country, but we have seen both Israel and the United States attack Iranian nuclear installations. And Trump has once again said that Iran should, under no circumstances, revive its nuclear program. How do you believe the Iranian regime will respond, and do you see the situation getting worse before it gets better on this front?
I don't know what the regime's intention is with regards to the nuclear program. What I can tell you is that the Iranian people are opposed to the nuclear program of the regime because a nuclear bomb is not going to resolve Iran's problems. In fact, it's the opposite. Because of the nuclear program, Iran has been facing many problems, such as the sanctions, which affects the people. We don't need nuclear energy. We don't need the policy of a nuclear program. The people are opposed to that, yet the regime is stubbornly pursuing its nuclear ambitions.
Coming back to the situation inside Iran, let me also speak about what you had yourself described as gender apartheid. In the wake of the brutal killing of Mahsa Amini, as a victim yourself of the Islamic regime that robbed you of your judgeship, where does this battle for gender equality in Iran stay today?
Look, gender equality is never going to be achieved in Iran as long as the Islamic regime, the Islamic Republic of Iran, is in power. It is impossible for that to happen. And that is why we had the protests of Women, Life, Freedom, which had many, many supporters in the country. Yet the laws in Iran were not changed and the discriminatory laws continue.
Ms. Ebadi, do you fear for your safety? I ask you this because having opposed this regime in Iran for almost half a century now, do you fear for your life that they might come after you as they have done in the past? And does that bother you? Does that scare you?
Look, my situation and the situation of my fellow activists. Yes, of course, it's a cause of concern and we are worried about it constantly, but it doesn't prevent us from continuing our activities. And I'd like to add that the Islamic Republic of Iran has a very black and very shameful record of the assassinations of the diaspora and the Iranian activists abroad that it has carried out.
Speaking of assassinations, we have seen a lot of worrying rhetoric emanating from both Iran and the United States. Recently at Davos, President Donald Trump said that if the Iranian regime tries to assassinate him, Iran will blow up. We have also heard Al Khamenei say that the hand that backed the protests in Iran will be chopped off. What do you make of all this rhetoric?
Look, we witnessed this war of words between the two sides during the first term of Donald Trump's presidency as well. And nothing ever came of it, so I doubt very much that the Islamic Republic of Iran will ever have the capability to harm Donald Trump, the President of the United States, in any way.
I know the situation in Iran is extremely tense and there is not much in humor, but even then, let me try to ask you on a lighter note. President Trump believes he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. You are a Nobel laureate yourself. Recently, a fellow woman and recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize, Maria Corina Machado, handed over her Nobel to President Trump. What's your view on that gesture? And do you believe Trump deserves the Nobel?
I'm not in a position to judge people's behavior, why they do what they do, and why Ms. Machado decided to give her Nobel Peace Prize to Donald Trump. As for whether or not Mr. Trump deserves to have the Nobel Peace Prize, that has nothing to do with me. That is a decision that the Nobel Committee makes, and their decisions very well informed and are based on their own research.
Ms. Shirin Ebadi, what's your message to the Islamic regime in Iran?
Please just give up power and leave, and listen to what the people want. And the people don't want you there anymore. Look at how the previous regime, the monarchist regime of the Shah, when they realized that people were protesting on the streets, when they realized that the people no longer wanted the monarchy. Now, why can't the Islamic Republic of Iran do the same thing instead of continuing with the mass killing of its people?
And finally, India and Iran have ties that have lasted centuries. We have been keeping our eyes on what's been happening in Iran for quite some time now. In fact, when Mahsa Amini was killed, there was outrage here in India as well. What's your message to the people of India? We are a thriving secular democracy. What's your message to our people?
Now, my message to the people of India is this: do not take the freedom, the democracy you have for granted, because if you see that any laws are not being abided by or are being violated, if you see your women, any situation, are killed, and if you remain quiet, you will lose the democracy that you have gained over the years. So make sure you do not remain silent if you come across any oppression, if you come across any discrimination, otherwise you will lose your freedom.
It's been a pleasure speaking with you, Shirin Ebadi. Thank you very much for joining me, and many congratulations, not just on your achievements, but on the fact that on issues of gender, you stand so fearless and so strong. Thank you very much for joining me on Times Now.